You are in the right place at the right time. Listen, guys, today we have the awesome therapist, Cameisha Brewer Dickerson, on our show today. She's here to talk about her awesome book, Thought Life Confessions, coming out this Friday, the 17th. Go get it. I'm going to get mine. And when I tell you that she's bad, bad, super bad, I can even give her where's the James Brown? I don't see James Brown right now, but I would give her the James Brown. But absolutely, let me tell you something. If you go on her page, she has nothing but good information. And so I'm really excited about this book coming up. Dr. Brewer, how are you doing? Dr. Dickerson, rather. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
I am doing awesome. Great to have you all the way live from Arkansas. And guess what, guys? She's a Cowboy fan.
I am.
Come on. She's a Cowboy fan. That's right. So we're going to play the promo and we're going to be right back with our show. Awesome. We've got Cameisha Brewer Dickerson. She's a licensed psychotherapist, a thought life coach. She's stopping by today to tell us about her upcoming book, Thought Life Confessions. And we're glad to have her. And she's going to also tell us how we must change our thought life patterns in order to be successful. But let's give it up for her early. I couldn't find my applause button. But we don't let nobody come in here. You don't let nobody come in here. Don't give them some applause. That's right. We got a licensed psychotherapist with us today. So you guys got questions, please do chime in and ask your questions. And here goes Barry Dingle. He said you just messed up the whole segment calling the cowgirl's name. Sacrilege and blasphemous things you say, Barry Dingle. We will not follow that up today. We will go straight back to the counselor. Counselor, my first question for you. Tell me about Cameisha Brewer and who she was before she became a superhero.
Wow. I don't think I'm quite a superhero. I don't try to save anybody. I don't try to rescue anybody. I just, try to help people learn to face themselves and deal with their own problems and just, equip them to do that. But before I became a licensed psychotherapist, I was actually working as a preschool teacher. So I was working with small children. They were like 2.5 to 3.5 as a behavior intervention specialist because my training was still in clinical mental health. And so they brought me in to do, some behavior modifications, creating treatment plans. A lot of those children were dealing with aggression and behavior problems, a lot of trauma from broken homes, parents on drugs. But they still needed to learn like ABCs, one, two, threes, color, safe touch, manners, all things that, kids need before they get ready to go to preschool or kindergarten. So before counseling, I was working as a preschool teacher, and then I started working just wherever I could. Like that was a journey, but just trying to find my way. And I hated teaching. I was absolutely miserable. And I talk about this in the book. I come from a long line of teachers, and I made a decision like, I'm not going to be a teacher. And I became a teacher. That's what happened. And so I quit, and I did not renew my contract. It was not for me. And I was working as a waitress, and I was working as a cashier at Lowe's just to figure out what I wanted to do. I had a master's degree and stepped out of that. And my family was like, what? You left your salary job to go back to waitressing? I'm like, yeah, I wasn't happy. But while I was waitressing, that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to build my business, and I'm going to save up this money and go take my board so I could practice as a therapist.
Awesome. Awesome. And I'm glad you made that switch. And I know a lot of your clients are absolutely glad you made that switch. Barry Dingle, our comedian, says, too many big words for me, but sounds like you can help out the Cowboy Nation. Well, listen, Pittsburgh, get your dictionary out, because we've got the psychotherapist on today, sir. That's right. We've got the psychotherapist on. Counselor, what are some things that the average person may not realize about their thought life or thought life patterns?
I think the average person may not realize how much of the things that we do are really dictated by our thought life and based on our feelings. So even from the clothes we wear or what we buy, the type of foods we buy, what we eat, the type of networking circles we decide to get in, the type of churches we go to, if we go to church at all, or if we're going back to school, if we're starting a business, any of the decisions, like if we're going to have a family, start a family, get married, get divorced, whatever, all of those things come from our thought life and the patterns in our life experiences, what we've been taught, what we believe, what we're struggling with. All of those things combined is what makes up our thought life. So if there's anything unhealthy, anything that has been impacted by trauma, anything that we're not even aware exists, those things are going to show up in our decision-making process because of our thought patterns.
Wow. That's deep. That's deep. So there are roots. Actually, the roots actually lead back to something that we thought about, a thought that was open, maybe a memory, but it all goes back to our thought patterns.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Counselor, tell me about your book, Thought Life Confessions, and developing healthy thought life patterns.
Yeah, so Thought Life Confessions is a toolkit for anxious, successful women. And I wrote this book because in my practice, in therapy and in coaching, I see high achieving, highly ambitious women who are dealing with anxiety. And so what many of us do, and this was myself included before I did my own work to get my thought life under control, we just work and we continue to work. We have a master's degree, we go back and get another master's degree. Once we get that second or third master's degree, we go back and get a doctorate degree. And some of the chasing and the pursuit of just needing to get to that next level of success is so that we don't have to face ourselves. And so that we don't have to deal with, any emotional pain, any unresolved grief, any trauma, the reality that many of us are single, or the reality that many of us came from broken homes, or the reality that we feel like we're not enough, or we feel inadequate, or we feel like something's missing or something's wrong with us. And I talk about this cycle of perfectionism and how when perfectionism starts to flare up, it pushes us into making decisions that we're not ready for. We get on this track of education or starting a business and launching a business, just go, go, go. And a lot of us find ourselves in debt because we can't quite afford this lifestyle we're pursuing. And we just keep going back to school. We get in a job, we don't like it. We're like, oh, I need to go back to school to get another degree. You don't need another degree. Like, you have the skill set, you have the knowledge. You just may need to work for a different company. And so a lot of us, a lot of those things are rooted in control. And with the control, it's hard for us to make changes. We want to do things our way, which I don't think there's anything wrong with it. You just have to create a lifestyle that will position you to do what you want to do. And so I wrote this book for those women that are in these patterns, that are in these cycles of perfectionism, feeling isolated, feeling alone, feeling anxious, feeling like, we can't quite calm down. We're always on 10, always looking for the next thing to do. So much so that when it's time to rest, we don't know how. Like, we feel anxious when it's time to lay down. We can't just chill on the couch and watch a movie or watch the game. We feel like we always have to be doing something. So I wanted to write this book for those women to give them tools and steps and resources and journal prompts and action steps of how to break through these thought patterns and really step into a lifestyle that's full of grace and full of self-love and self-compassion, because us as women, we're in leadership positions. So we're leading these hospitals and the banks and the churches and the schools. So it's important for us to be healthy because there are people who work underneath us. And if we're not our best selves, we're not leading well, we're not training them well, we're not equipping our teams to be successful in their roles either. So that's who I wrote the book for.
Awesome. That's awesome. I like that. And it covers, and for men, from my standpoint, I can feel you too on that about, just always going and just, never being able to attain, even though you're conquering and attaining some things, there's something else missing that you won't face.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. Barry K. Dingle says, this is a great topic. Me and my daughter had this similar topic. And so he has a question.
Sure.
He says, good evening. He says, the question for the day, do you feel parents should stay together even though their household is toxic, or they should split, and the effects on the children? I will post this later. Well, he's asking, should parents stay together in a toxic relationship for the kids?
Right. This is a loaded question. And I can't say yes or no to it because I think it kind of depends on the household, and it depends on their definition of toxic. And so sometimes toxic is just, we don't get along because we have two different communication styles, and we're labeling that as toxic instead of different communication styles. And so that may not actually be an unhealthy relationship where people need to get out of it. But if toxic includes abuse and domestic violence and things like that, where someone's not safe and the children are not safe, that's a completely different conversation as far as should we stay in this. So I think it varies. It depends on the household. It depends on, the safety level. And sometimes people don't want to put in the work to work through things. And it's so easy to get out because we see that all the time. People, especially when people are married or together, they're like, oh, we can just break up and go our separate ways. Like, that's just a normal thing to do. And for some people it is, but a lot of this is resilience and being committed to the work and working through it, and not just staying together because you have children, but staying together because you want to be together and you want to create this conducive, healthy experience for yourselves and for your children, so that it is balanced. Because I see the opposite side of this. I see parents who stay in relationships for years because of their children, and then later in life, they resent their children because they feel like they missed out on valuable years of life because they stayed in that relationship that was toxic or unhealthy. So it's a really hard question to answer from this perspective, but I think there's just a lot of things that need to be evaluated in this decision-making process.
Thank you for your question, Barry. Thank you for your answer, Doctor. We do appreciate that. A thought life shift sounds a bit like a paradigm shift. How important is our perception in our thought life on this journey?
Oh, it's very important. I teach a lot on thought life shifts because there's so many shifts that have to happen. Like, and even in the book, I talk about how you can be in one shift and be on your way into another shift, meaning shifting the way you approach your finances. Like, when you're single and you don't have children, you can go get your hair done every weekend. You can go get a haircut. You can go buy what you want to buy because that's your lifestyle. But when you have children or when you get married, you have to have a thought life shift that says, hey, before I go spend $500 on this, let me have a conversation with my partner. Let me have a conversation with my spouse, or let me make sure we've got daycare paid, for the rest of the week or for the rest of the month. So thought life shifts are what have to happen when you get in a new season of life. And so a lot of people struggle when they don't shift. They want to continue to live like they're single with no children or no responsibilities, or they don't have a care in the world, like they're still 21 and in college. But when you're 40, sometimes that doesn't work out. There has to be, a level of maturity and some thought life shifts that are happening that will make your life more conducive to the season of life that you're actually in, and not the one you used to be in 20 something years ago.
Thank you, doctor. Barry Dingle did chime back in. He said no abuse, but it takes a lot away from the kids. He said, I see so many broken kids. Following up on what you said earlier. A quote from your book, counselor, says, your life is God's stage. Could you elaborate on that a bit for us?
Sure. Absolutely. That quote is more so just speaking to my personal belief about the way God uses our life, like even with your show, and like the people that you're able to reach, people that, with each guest, you get to be in front of a different audience and new people that will continue to listen to your show after this. And just thinking about the opportunity for that. And is this an opportunity to lead people to God? Or is it an opportunity to encourage someone who's thinking about, giving up on life, and they just need some inspiration, encouragement. They need a glimpse of hope, like using your platform always to do that. And even if it's not, in the online space or entertainment space, social media space, but even, someone that's a janitor at a hospital, or, the nurse's assistant, or the elderly lady that works in the grocery store, like that's still a platform. So I think everyone has a stage where they can make an impact. They can be used by God. They can encourage somebody if you take advantage of it. I know a lot of people glorify social media like that's the only place to have a platform. But I think everyone's life is an opportunity to be a stage where they can be used by God and share their gift with the world.
Man, I'm about to give you the yes, I could feel it. I could feel it when you said that. Yes, ma'am. I do so agree. I like listening to you, counselor, because you're not afraid to be transparent. Was it easy to get to this place in your life?
I think easy, no. Direct answer is no, but I think I'm growing into my authentic self the older I get, just because I'm now in different rooms, I'm on different platforms, especially with the speaking, even before the book. And so I used to be really self-conscious about my down south accent. And I would try to, make sure I'm professional and articulate my words. And I do that. However, you will hear my Southern accent. It's coming out. It ain't nothing I can do about it. But that's my real self every day. And so I'm growing into my authentic self, because there are some spaces where I'm not a good fit. So even when I do podcast interviews, I want to meet with the host before we get on there, because if we can't have a conversation, or I feel like, there's no respect, or I feel like you think I'm a Southern bumpkin, that doesn't know anything, I'm not coming on your show. Like, I don't want to feel like that. I don't feel like, it would be anything comfortable for me. So yes, now I do feel more confident, and I do feel like I'm growing into my authentic self. And some people are fine with it and some people are not, but I'm fine with it because I've gotten to that point of self-love for me every day.
Well, you are no Southern bumpkin. I'll tell you that. You are at the top of your trade. And I know that just listening to your recordings that you put out, awesome, good stuff, really good stuff. I'm really excited about your book. I'm gonna get my copy. I put in my pre-order last night, and I cannot wait. I'm getting my copy of the book. We're gonna have you back after I read the book too.
Okay.
Absolutely. So, as a licensed counselor and thought coach, how important has your faith been?
Oh, it's been so important. When I start sessions, like, I pray for my clients. I pray during sessions, after the sessions. Now, I'm not talking like praying out loud for these people, because I think, everybody didn't sign up for that. Right. But, when dealing with what I deal with is a lot of depression, anxiety, relationship issues, career issues, and some trauma. They need something I can't give them as a person. And so sometimes they hold on to my faith. They hold on to my belief that they're going to get better. I'm teaching them the skills, I'm teaching them the practical things of how we're going to get them to this and like get them through this and get to their treatment goals, but sometimes they need to hold on to something I don't have to give them because some days I don't feel like doing therapy. Some days I'm tired. Some days, I get stressed out about the pandemic and school and family stuff. Like I'm human. I have a real life outside of being a therapist. So I have to stay rooted and grounded in my faith so that I don't show up to work looking just as discouraged as my clients because I don't think that's going to be beneficial with them. And on the days where and I know my patterns. I know how I feel. And I know when I get tired and when I need a break. And so when I'm not feeling up for therapy, that's when I block off my schedule and I tell my entire caseload, hey, I'm going to take a few days off for my own mental health. So I think it's important from a faith standpoint, just so that I can keep myself grounded and rooted and healthy because a lot of people are dealing with a lot of spiritual things in addition to their mental health. And that's something that I want to make sure that I'm in a good place and that I don't take on some of those mental burdens and barriers that they're dealing with. And then I end up back in therapy just so I can function during the day. So it's definitely important for me.
Well, I think it's awesome that you bring God into the equation. I think it's awesome that you bring God into the equation. Um, that's awesome. I would want my therapist to be a praying therapist. Definitely.
Yeah, and a lot of people are looking for that. Some therapists or counselors don't market themselves as Christian counselors because they don't want to deter anyone who's not Christian. My approach for that was to market myself as a Christian counselor because I know some people are looking for Christians and they're looking for people who share the same belief system as them because it just makes things easier for clients when they know that their counselor understands their belief system.
Amen. Amen. What's the biggest thing that you found about people's failure to commit?
The biggest thing that I found with people's failure to commit is that it's more of a fear of the failure itself. And so when there's a fear of failure, people they tend to not commit because they don't want, people to find out that it didn't work out the way that they thought it would. Sometimes when people are I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. So when people are starting a business, they're like, "Oh, I want to post it to Facebook. I want to post it to Facebook." And I'm like, and they equate a Facebook post as a launch of a business, and it's not. And so we have to do a lot of background work to get them mentally ready for that because sometimes, everything's a lot of testing the waters just to see where your people are and if they want what you have. But a lot of people see that as a failure if they don't get a certain amount of likes or if they don't get a certain amount of comments. And I'm like, were you trying to sell a product or were you trying to get likes and comments? Because that's the thought life shift where we need to figure out what your true intentions were. And so if the true intentions were just to put a blog out to inspire people and to encourage people, the thought life shift is, this we may not be able to measure success of other people's encouragement. And so we just commit to writing the blogs because that's the assignment or that's what we decided we were going to do. So I think a lot of people get so afraid of the failure part. And I don't even think failure is a thing. I think failure can be used in a good way, but they get so afraid of the failure and feeling like a public embarrassment if people find out that they're not really as successful as what they say they are, or that something didn't go as well as they planned, that they don't commit out of fear.
It's almost like I have to be instantly successful. And if I'm not instantly successful, I need to be banished from my peer groups or from all my friends.
Right.
Can you elaborate on the quit culture and how to cancel the quit culture?
Yeah. And quit culture, I don't think we can cancel it, honestly, because I think people will always quit. I think they will always find a valid reason to quit. And I think if you are a quitter, I think the deeper question for me, therapist brain, here we go, is why are you quitting and why did you want to start in the first place? And just trying to figure out, what that underlying reason is, see where your commitment level is, and then identify If you've got barriers or obstacles in your way, if we remove them, would you keep going? If you got the support that you need, the funding that you needed, would you keep going? And if the answer is yes, then we just need to deal with what's in your way. And that's it. But when people don't quite have and I think this is where coaching and mentorship can really play a huge role for people starting out. But when you don't have the support and the coaching you need that can say, hey, don't quit just yet. Let's deal with this thing and then you'll be good to go. When you got somebody in your corner that can show you the way, then it's easier to keep going and to not quit. But if you're trying to do everything on your own or do everything for free, watching YouTube University instead of actually making an investment and paying somebody to help you, when you try to do that, yes, it is easier to quit because you don't know what you're doing. And there's no way for you to know what you're doing because you're brand new. So I don't think we're going to be able to cancel quit culture. I think people are just going to have to get real honest about what they're doing and why they're doing it in the first place.
All right. YouTube University, huh?
Yeah.
You mentioned, Counselor, you mentioned the good part happens after the bad part. It sounded a bit like Romans 8:28 to me. All things work together for good. Could you expound a bit on the good part happening after the bad? Well, on the good part, on the bad part happening, or the good part happening after the bad part. I got a little mixed up there for a second.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, because I know there's some people that, may be watching this later, maybe in a season life where their good part just wasn't a good part and their bad part got even worse. So this isn't something that I believe is true in all things, but for some people, when we're working on things, when we're working on projects, when you get really close to the end and you get really close to the good part, that's usually when it feels like everything's falling apart. And even in this book, I got really tired. I was frustrated. I was planning some other things in my business. I had a lot of new clients I was onboarding, and I was telling my coach, I was like, I think I want to take a break and push this date back. And I was like, I'm not going to quit, but I was like, I don't think this is good for me to stay in right now. And she was like, Cameisha, just keep going. You're almost done. She was like, if you feel like this, I want you to go back and write some more. I'm like, you're not listening to what I just said. I'm frustrated. I'm tired. There's a lot going on. She was like, you're about to write the best chapter of your life because you're frustrated. I'm like, okay, since you know what you're doing, I'm gonna go back in here and write. And she's right. Like it really, really happened like that. So usually for a lot of situations, and I've seen this over the years, I've seen this with my clients when they feel like everything is falling apart, it's really falling into place. And so if you can just hang on for just a little bit, find your faith, find your courage, borrow somebody else's faith, that's usually when things start turning around. But if you quit early, you don't see it.
That's true. And I have to co-sign on that because that is true. It is true. But you said you went back and you wrote the best chapter.
Absolutely.
Which chapter was that? So I can remember. Do you remember what chapter that was?
It's the chapter on perfectionism. I talk about having a sophisticated grace dress and changing outfits. It's good.
I'm gonna remember that when I read that chapter.
Yeah, it's good.
That's right. I'm gonna remember that. Academics, concerning conflict resolution skills.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned some of us lack those skills. Can you give us your spin on that, counselor?
Yeah, conflict resolution. I see a lot of clients in therapy because this skill is lacking. This is a culture thing, I think, for a lot of people. When they get in a disagreement with somebody, they say just cut them off. And I don't think we should cut everybody off because I don't think that teaches us anything other than people are disposable, which I don't believe is true. And so some of the things we're just going to have to get in there and work through if we're going to have high quality, long lasting relationships. And that's in a marriage, that's in a friendship, that's in, a job or business relationships. Everybody's not going to say things just right. They're going to disagree with you. They're going to call you out. They're going to hurt your feelings. Sometimes it'll be intentional. Sometimes it'll be unintentional. Sometimes they may not even be aware. But when you have conflict resolution skills, you're able to communicate how you feel, express what you need, be very assertive, not passive aggressive and like don't say anything for 6 months and then blow up on them later, but be really assertive up front, like, hey, this bothers me, or this makes me uncomfortable when you say this, or can you not do this? And when we advocate for ourselves, then people, they learn to respect us, they learn to love us more, that we care enough to say something early instead of allowing things to go on longer than they should. But conflict resolution skills are something that is very needed, especially in our young adults, because right now, if they have a hard time at a job, they just quit. And like everything's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be this dream of a work environment, especially those of them that are straight out of school, like in these entry level positions. Like it's not pretty. You're not going to have the fancy corner office with all the windows. They're going to give you a little piece of a desk and you may be sharing a desk with somebody else for the other part of the day, but you just kind of get in where you fit in and you work through that conflict because you're going to learn something. It's going to teach you character. It's going to teach you integrity. You'll learn grit, resilience, everything else that you need if you stay in the conflict for just a little bit and work through it. I'm not advocating for people to stay somewhere for 10 years and be miserable. That is not what I'm saying. But for a little bit, just working through hard things, it does, build your character.
All right. Hang on in there for a little bit. Okay. Academics always came to you easily while using your shortcut concept. That did not work when you got to math. What did this teach you about shortcuts?
Oh, yeah. You watched my video. Okay.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I definitely used to do shortcuts in math because I'm not good at math. I could just visually remember things, but I couldn't tell you the steps. So if you ask me to do it a different way, I can't do it. And I still can't to this day. And I'm very honest about that. So thank God I don't have to do anything in the mathematics field. But what it taught me about shortcuts is that some things you're just going to have to learn how to do. Everybody is not going to do things for you. They're not going to hold your hand. You're going to have to just get in there and figure out a way to get it done. And sometimes that means asking for help, even if that sometimes you have to swallow your pride to be able to do that. But asking for help, getting the coaching that you need, getting the mentorship that you need, taking a class. Like you can if you're not good at math or finances, it's not enough for you to say, oh, well, I'm not good at budgeting. Therefore, I'm going to just, live paycheck to paycheck for the rest of my life. Like you can learn how to be good at budgeting. Again, YouTube University, there's a lot of apps, there's resources, there are books out there. But when you put the work in to learn something and to strengthen, an area that you're not so good at, you can have a new skill set. If you want that, some people are comfortable just not having and not knowing, and they want to stay there, which is totally fine. But it taught me something about shortcuts. Like there's some stuff that I'm just going to have to just buckle down and do, even though I don't like it. Everything you're not going to like, it's not going to be fun, but that doesn't mean it doesn't need to be done and addressed in your life.
Thank you. Thank you, counselor. What is the problem when people rely on the lottery for finances or some other get-rich scheme, comfortably building a relationship on shortcuts?
I think the problem is you don't actually create a solid foundation for yourself, and you don't quite position yourself to thrive financially. You don't set your children up for, generational wealth and being able to pass things on to them. But again, I really feel like a lot of this is just a lack of knowledge and a lack of resources where, a lot of people, they want things for free, and they think that, people should give them things for free just because they ask, or just because of where they live, or they're in a certain socioeconomic status. But again, that's a mindset and that's a thought life shift, because there's a lot of people who came from poverty who have been able to create a beautiful lifestyle for themselves, and now they're millionaires. So it doesn't mean that if you're a millionaire now, somebody else handed you $5 million and that's how you became a millionaire. Most people didn't get there. And I was one of those people. At one point I was living paycheck to paycheck. I couldn't pay my bills. I was severely in debt. And I even was living on food stamps for a long time, just trying to make ends meet. But I wasn't satisfied with living like that, because if the state and if the government said, okay, Cameisha, we're not going to give you these food stamps anymore, how was I supposed to eat? So I wasn't comfortable with my livelihood being in someone else's hands. And so with a few thought life shifts, I was able to get out of that lifestyle and work hard and create things and learn new skills and take advantage of opportunities. And slowly, over time, I was able to position myself to not live like that. And so because I'm out of that, but I understand the mindset because I used to be there, like, oh, I'll pay them student loans back later, but it's affecting me now while I'm talking about I'll pay them later, especially when I'm doing things like, oh, I'm going to get my hair done. I'm not going to pay my student loans, like that kind of mindset. So now my mission is empowering women, especially, young women of color, of how to be more financially disciplined, because a lot of their mental health problems stem from financial stressors.
Wow, that's deep. Whew. When success, you're preaching today. When success seems elusive, what must we hold on to reach our desired goal?
I think we have to really define what success is for us, because it means something different to different people. And so some people, they view success as speaking on somebody's podcast, or being at a summit, or, speaking at a women's conference, or writing a book, or having a logo, or having a website, which are all things you can actually do for free. So if that's your version of success, okay, great, hold on to that. But for other people, their version of success, especially someone who's depressed, their version of success is being able to get out of the bed and take a shower that day. Because normally they would just lay in the bed all day with no desire to live, no desire to get up and do anything. Even as far as like basic hygiene, the days that they do that, that's success for them. So I think it kind of depends on what you see as success and what your success is going to look like for you. Everybody's not going to be Oprah. Everybody's not going to be, Warren Buffett. Everybody's not going to have that level of success, but it doesn't mean that if you're not at that level of success, that success has eluded you at all. And I also talk about this in the book, is for the women that are constantly on this chase of grind and hustle mentality, to decide what level of success is enough for you. Like if you decide I'm not going to college, my high school diploma is enough for me, okay, cool. Ride with that, but don't beat yourself up about not having a bachelor's or not having a master's. You've made a decision, just commit to the decision. And I think that will really bring about some peace and contentment of just being fine with the level of success that you're at. Because if you decide to go to the next level, you can, but you got to ask yourself, why are you going? Why are you pushing yourself? I see a lot of women that, they have one master's degree, and in the process of getting that one master's degree, their marriage fell apart. Their children started acting out. They gained a bunch of weight. They had health problems because of the stress. And 6 months later, because the job situation hasn't worked out yet, they say, well, I'm going to go back and get a master's degree in a different area, with no insight about what this round of another degree pursuit could do to your family, or could do to your own body, or could do to your children. And it can be traumatic, honestly, like the pursuit of success. So I really encourage people to be honest and to just decide of what level of success is enough for you, and just commit to your decision and live there.
I'm learning some things today. I am absolutely learning some things today. I feel like I need to have my pencil out and I need to be writing things down. Well, I've got it recorded. Yeah. This valuable stuff. You said we should welcome failure and learn the lesson that failure is teaching, counselor. What is our biggest problem with failure?
I think we're afraid of it, and we don't quite see it as an opportunity, or an opportunity for us to grow and to learn something else. And I think, my most successful business ventures came after the things that didn't work, because I learned what to do and what not to do. So if everything had gone correctly, I would not have learned anything. I would have just, kept doing what I was doing. But when things don't go as planned and it's a quote unquote failure, when you see it as a learning opportunity, you can build on that. And then you can say, okay, well, let me tweak this. Let me do more research in this area. Let me be a little bit more creative in this area. Let me spend some more money and get a better software system to make this flow better, so I don't have to manually do all these steps or whatever it is. But the things that don't work well and the failures, they create an opportunity for you to dig a little deeper, which will actually position you to have even more success on the other side of it.
As a that's an awesome answer. As a licensed psychotherapist and thought life coach, What has been your greatest challenge, counselor?
I think my greatest challenge for me has been being gracious with myself and being gracious with other people. I hold myself to a very high standard of, excellence and professionalism. And that's something I value, not because, I obsess about it to the point of perfectionism, although I used to, but now just being gracious with myself and living at a pace of life that I can sustain. And so, even with this book launch, I told my husband and I told my coaches and my team that I'm not launching anything else for the rest of the year. We're not doing any big events. We're not doing any big anythings. I'm not doing another master class, a course, a different coaching program. I'm not doing anything for the rest of the year because number one, it's football season. And number two, I've done more than enough. I've done more than enough for the year. Therefore, I'm going to sit back and enjoy the fruits of my labor. And I'm committed to that. I've asked them all to hold me accountable because I know me. If Cameisha gets an idea in November, I'll get back in this office and get to work and get on the laptop. I'm like, y'all come take all my devices and make me get somewhere and sit down if y'all see me trying to get back at it. But I had to ask for that and I had to plan for that in advance. I've already blocked off the dates where I'm not working. I'm not seeing clients. And so my biggest challenge has been being okay with that kind of self-discipline and to give myself grace and compassion to not keep working because this level of success for the year is enough for me. And that's my decision. If God does more with it, so be it. But I'm not going to create anything new.
It's going to have to be a FedEx from God.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. And he and I talk often, so I'll know.
Amen. No shortcuts to me sounds like learning to play the long game. How hard is that in this culture of instant gratification?
It's very hard. And even in my coaching program, the Thought Life membership program, we had a coaching call last night. And I was teaching about doing your research when you're starting out. Many of them are early entrepreneurs dealing with some mindset shifts, growing up in families where nobody's an entrepreneur, nobody's a business owner. They don't have anybody in their circle. Everybody that they know works for somebody else and they don't want their life. And so they're going to work, for their companies for now, but they're trying to build this business on the side and eventually replace their salary. And so we were talking about the importance of doing your research in those early stages of like getting your pricing, seeing what software systems you need, pricing how much supplies you need to create your products, what vendors are you going to use, like doing all those things. Because normally when people call me, they're like, Cameisha, I have an idea and I want you to coach me. They're like, but really all I need your help with is a website. And then I ask them, my screening questions just so I can see where they're at in terms of their mindset. And we find out that they're nowhere close to having a website, but they called me to build a website. I don't do websites, which is also how I know that they're not quite ready, to step into something that they think they want to step into. And so in my programs, I teach women how to do their research, how to slow down, what questions to ask, who they need to be contacting, what people they need to be following on social media just to see what they're doing and how they move. And when you take time to build a foundation, there's no room for instant gratification because you'll learn to appreciate the work that you're putting in on the front end because you're building a business that's where you can be in it for the long haul. You can pass it down to your children. They can pass it down to their children. Like you're building a legacy. You're building generational wealth. And when you do it right, you can do whatever you want to do. One of my coaches, she only works 7 months out of the year. And the other months, like she's still getting paid because of the way she sets stuff up. And so I'm like, it can be done, but you can't be in a rush to just throw something up just to put it on Facebook or Instagram, because these website designers out here, they'll let you pay them to put up a website and you don't even know what content needs to be on your website because you haven't done your research. So I think it's super important to build a real foundation so that you're not just out here trying to be in the mix of something you're not even ready for, because, that's where failure really can creep in because you didn't do it right. or because you got in a hurry and you thought that, you're chasing the gratification or wanting to be affirmed or acknowledged, wanting people to see you, which is an emotional need that has nothing to do with a business decision. So just learning how to separate those things and make a really good decision and build a foundation.
Wow. We touched on this earlier. We touched on this earlier, but I wanted to hit another aspect of it, because you personify failure and make it a friend. I don't know what draws me more, the oxymoron of friendly failure or the personification of failure as a friend that you can sit down and have. And this is my favorite ice cream, Haagen-Dazs rum raisin ice cream with. Where I had to plug Haagen-Dazs rum, that because it's straight from heaven. It's not ice cream, it's an experience. Where does our thought process have to be to get cordial with failure?
I think it has to be like open, just an open thought process, a surrendered thought process of, I'm going to be open to this full experience, whatever comes with it, however it shows up, whatever works, whatever doesn't. I'm here for the whole ride and just enjoying every bit of it. And then through that openness and just acceptance of it, you can see failure as friendly instead of this like big scary monster that you're trying to hide from. Because like failure, it can't like eat you. Like that's a mental thing. Like failure itself is harmless, honestly. But when you see failure as um just something friendly, like failure, you can sit with it. And as therapists, we encourage clients to sit with their feelings, which is what people don't want to do. So even in grief, or a divorce, or from my from my young girls, a breakup, nobody wants to sit with their feelings. Everybody just wants to go back to work, take a vacation. Oh, I need retail therapy, I need to go clear my head. Like, no, you actually need to sit with your feelings, because your feelings will talk to you. Your feelings will teach you something about yourself. Your feelings will make you look at yourself and see where you're responsible for some of this, because it's so easy, when it's like heartache or things not working out, it's so easy to say, well, if they hadn't done this, and this, none of that would ever happen. But in that same sentence, you also have to look at your own self and look at your life and look at your role and say, okay, well, what did I do? Was I too harsh? Was I too rigid? Could I have been more compassionate? Could I have been more patient? Should I have asked more questions? For people that find themselves in situations that really could have been avoided because they didn't do their research, could I have asked more questions? And sitting with failure in those moments, it's not to beat yourself up, but it's to teach you what to look for, so you don't stay in the cycle. When people don't sit with failure, they get right back in a similar relationship that looks just like the last one. They get right back in a similar business decision, looks just like the last one. It's because they didn't learn anything. They're just like, oh, well, it didn't work out. Let me just, count that as a loss and keep it moving. You need to break that apart though, because there's some layers and some components and some patterns and some behaviors that could have been avoided if you were aware that they even existed. And sometimes people can't sit with failure and get that much from it from their perspective. But with a counselor or with a therapist, they can give you a different angle about what it is that you're experiencing by just saying, hey, have you ever considered blah, blah, blah? Or is it possible that? And then they'll be like, man, I never thought about it like that. There's no way for you to think about it because you experience your own life from one perspective.
What would you tell someone, counselor, that feels the pattern of failure in their life will not be broken? And when do you have to reinvent yourself?
I think you tell them it won't be broken if they believe it won't be broken, because I think that's very much so a part of our belief system, and definitely a faith thing. But I think every day is a good day to reinvent yourself. I really do. I don't think there's a perfect time to do it. I know a lot of people are like, oh, when I turn 40, I'm going to do this. I'm going to cut my hair. I'm going to start losing weight. I'm going to get in shape. I'm like, why wait until 40? Like, if you know you need to make those lifestyle changes now, go ahead and do it. We don't have to wait until Monday to start a diet. You can go to the grocery store and get what you need and start the diet today. So I think every day is a good day to do that, especially when you recognize and acknowledge the things that you need to do differently in your own life.
Where can we get your book? I tell you what, I'm taking it in. I'm listening to what you're saying. and I feel like I am the audience today, and I'm supposed to be the host, but I feel like the audience, and I feel like I'm getting therapy for free. Where can you get your book? Where can we get your book, Thought Life Confessions?
You can get my book at thoughtlifeconfessions.com. It will be available this Friday night. My launch party is starts at 7 o'clock and it's free. Everyone who's on the wait list for pre-orders, everyone's invited to the launch party. So at the party, everyone can start buying their books. And of course, right after the party, it will be available and it will continue to be available. But it's thoughtlifeconfessions.com. And everyone who orders their book, I will be signing everyone's copies because I know I'm heartfelt like that, and I appreciate everyone, supporting this dream and this vision. Even if they buy it and like give it to a niece or a coworker, like I know that this is a seed that I'm sowing into the lives of a lot of women, and I'm excited about that.
Guys, get this book. Let me tell you, this is this is going to be an awesome book. Thoughtlifeconfessions.com. It's scrolling on the bottom of the page. Don't let me be the only one to get healed. Get the book and get healed and get delivered. And then you say, well, he ain't trying to share it with me. I'm trying to share it with you now. Thoughtlifeconfessions.com. You need to go and get your book. There's going to be a release party. I'm gonna go ahead and tag my page with the release party a flyer so you guys can see it. But definitely get your book, man. Thoughtlifeconfessions.com. Um, Counselor, last question today.
Yes, sir.
And I appreciate you so much. I'm so thankful that you came and you joined us today. This has been such an awesome interview. And I know, and what makes it even better, you're a Dallas Cowboy fan. Uh, Arkansas is really blessed for having you. I hope they really use you because you're definitely God sent. They need to use you. Oh, I tell you, I'm just excited about this book. Counselor, what would you say about your journey so far?
Wow. Um, I think my journey it's been full circle at this point. I feel like, I've had my share of, grief and depression, anxiety, financial hardships, relationship issues, friend issues. And I'm 30, so I feel like I've had a very full life with a lot of different life experiences. But just being at this point where I'm able to use my foundation of what my parents taught me about loving people, loving God, serving people, serving the community, and using your gifts to glorify God and not to get rich. But, if the money finds you in the process, so be it. Like using that foundation to really just teach and educate and empower every person I come in contact with, it's been just a really rewarding experience with me. And I really feel like this is just the beginning of my work and the beginning of what I'm going to be able to do. And so, as the next phase for me, I just feel like this book is going to really be a blessing to a lot of women where they are going to be inspired, be encouraged. They are going to mentally level up. They are going to laugh. They are going to have these much needed thought life shifts that have been creating mindset blocks for them for years. And I really feel like there's paragraphs or sentences in that book that are really going to free some of these women mentally. And I'm excited to see what they do with that, even though I may never find out, who has read my book and what it has done for their lives, just praying and believing in faith that they're going to go impact the world with a different outlook and a different perspective on what it is that God says about them and how much He loves them and how much anxiety doesn't have to continue to control your life as you're creating success.
Cameisha Brewer Dickerson, our guest for today. I'm so thankful that you came and you joined us today, Counselor Dickerson. I just my prayer for you is that you're just blessed in the city and blessed in the field, and you're blessed in your going out and blessed in your coming in. That God just opens greater doors of influence for you. That He just puts you exactly where He needs you to be to use you. I think that you're anointed to do what you do, and I'm thankful that our paths crossed today. And I thank you for coming here and sharing time with us today. And you're really a blessing. You are a blessing to us today. You are an absolute blessing. Thank you so very much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Guys, go out, get your book, thoughtlifeconfessions.com. Don't let me be the only one. We're going to have her back when I read the book. So when you come back, don't try to get the Cliff Notes. Because that was my shortcut. Because the Cliff Notes ain't gonna tell you nothing. Don't try to get the Cliff Notes
Right.
or try to listen to what somebody else might say. Read it for yourself. There's information in there that's gonna absolutely bless you. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. And we want to thank Dr. Cameisha Brewer Dickerson for joining us today. I throw doctor around a lot. I know that you're a counselor, but hey, I just feel doctor. It's all over you. It's all right because you're healing some people that are sick. You're healing some people that are sick, and God's blessings on you. And we're all sick, so let me put that disclaimer in. We're all sick, so you're healing some people. You are a healer, and so thank you so very much, ma'am. And please do come back and join us again.
Absolutely.
To all of you that's been tuning in, Barry Dingle, thank you for your questions. Thank everybody that's been listening, everybody that's going to listen. May this show bless you. And this is going to be our show for the day. Thank you for joining us on the Moral Compass.